Hello, everyone. I'm just checking with our speaker in case he needs help joining the call, so just give me a few moments. All right. I was not yet able to get a hold of Savya. He is a traveling monk, so sometimes in the past we've had things happen with various speakers who are monks, such as a delayed flight or being stuck in a flight or even just time zone confusions. So we will go ahead and get started with our icebreaker. And hopefully, if all goes right, we will see Savya join us. Otherwise, we will work out a plan B and think on our feet. That being said, today's icebreaker is, well, as you saw, the topic for today was the truth shall set us free. But truth is very relative, at least I feel like in today's modern day age. So the icebreaker, and it's a little bit more philosophical and deep of a question than we normally have, but I just thought it was so interesting. What is truth? What defines truth? Any thoughts?
I mean, the truth is dependent on your perspective. So often I'll say the truth lies in between two stories.
Mm,
So truth, I mean, but I think there's a distinction, right? Because sometimes when people talk about truth, is it a universal truth? Is it a facts-based truth? Or is it simply what is right or wrong? So I think there's some distinction there too.
definitely, yeah. And I really liked how you said it it's dependent on stories and it's relative to us. You know, I know it's an extreme example, but someone who is robbing a bank to some extent in their definition or their rule book, they could say this is truth, this is correct, and that is my truth. Whereas the rest of the population usually would say, no, that's incorrect. It's not your purpose as a human being. It's incorrect. It's against the law, et cetera, et cetera. So I really like the way you said that.
But is there a question then norms versus truth, which is what I think you just brought up?
Mm,
Because
yeah.
there are some norms that we've seen in culture, like slavery, but
Mhm.
that is not what I would consider the truth.
Right. Excellent point.
I would like to jump in on that.
Mhm.
So in regard to slavery, so I would say that slavery is by no means ethical, but in terms of truth, like speaking like truth, in the context of facts, like it's definitely something that happened, which I guess is another thing to consider, is that something that we're seeing a lot now is that there are facts, like there are very solid evidence-based facts from science and history and documentation that certain things have happened and certain things are true, um, that sometimes people don't believe. But like, I think that that's another thing of truth was, do you have, as we like to say in my field, a good as evidenced by to back this up?
Well, that goes back to the definition of what are you defining as truth? Does truth mean fact? Does truth mean perspective? Does truth mean, I mean, what is the definition? Or, what is your baseline for that? Is truth moral compass? Is truth, I mean, I feel like that's a loaded word in itself.
I mean,
And
I
I
think that
agree with your evidence-based example.
yeah, I mean, I think that like, so there's like truth, like I think that there are multiple definitions. Like I think there's spiritual like truth, like what is true for you in terms of like your values and ethics and like what you believe and like what is true to you. But then I think that it's also worth bringing up, like I said, like there are some things that are just very fact based and like here is the evidence and this is why this thing is accurate slash the truth.
I'd have to say that in our current political environment, um, yeah, a lot of times the truth is can be stretched, but I think it goes back to Priya, your definitions, and Philomena, same with you. I mean, I'd have to say, okay, what are we talking about? Are we talking about facts or moral compass, perspective, and so on? So I'm more, it's not like I'm coming up with anything new, except aside from the fact that, especially today, um, certain public figures like to stretch the truth.
I will also say in science, right? Even the truth of science changes over time. And so a perfect example of this is Darwin, right? Darwin wrote the theory of evolution from a patriarchal place. And now the biologists are realizing that there was there was a lot of, what he wrote about evolution is generally true, but how he came to that conclusion and the male and female roles in the world are quite different, especially in the animal kingdom. There's a great book called Bitch if you want to read it. But even science is not always true. Science is true in the moment.
Well, I don't know how many people know this, but yeah, hyenas, hyena clans, the female is the dominant figure, and of course, praying mantises. Uh, yeah, the husband ends up as lunch, if you can even use that term.
So can we agree? I mean, maybe the next question is, what is the definition? Like, how do you look at it? Is it point by point, day by day, hour by hour? What does it mean? I think we've come back to your question.
What is truth? Yes. And that was hopefully one of the questions that Savya was going to answer for us today. And unfortunately, I'm not able to get a hold of him and my messages aren't delivering. So my hypothesis is that he's stuck on an airplane somewhere 30,000 feet up in the sky, because he did say that he was flying back to South Africa. So that being said, as we like to do sometimes, we will instead pivot to a video. I tried to really hard in the 3 minutes of rapid Google searching to try to find a talk that would fit this topic, but I really couldn't. So instead, one of the closest ones I found was the currency of relationships. And the reason I thought it was somewhat related was because it's related to this idea of relativity between people and how that defines truth. So I know it might be a stretch of a comparison, but if it works out, perhaps we should get some insights into this question that we can reflect on later. So is it okay with everybody? A YouTube video to
I think it will be great fun.
yes.
I
Okay.
led a team meeting today where we talked about the difference between jaguars and cheetahs. So, and that turned out to be a great meeting, and we did it on the spur. So I think this is great.
I had a question before we started. What is that picture in your background?
Mine?
Yeah, the man.
Yeah, that's Cesar Chavez. So
Oh,
I'm the director of intellectual property at University of California in San Diego, although I live here in Seattle, and I have Cesar Chavez in my background. And if you could see my chair that I'm sitting on, I have a kafia in it. So anyone I have a call with, gets to know where I stand on things.
All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. Too many windows. This is the issue with having 3 monitors is you lose track of where things have gone.
wait a minute, 3 monitors?
Yeah.
Now I've got 2 monitors in my work, and it's like, okay, because we have tabs over here and this browser over here, this app here. So 3 monitors. Okay.
Yeah, I have a teleprompter, which is also a screen. So I guess it's kind of a monitor, but things get lost in that too. Like I can't even find Zoom right now. So I can hear everybody, but
technology.
sorry guys.
You won't get any complaints out of me.
There we go. Found it. So this is a talk at Google by Radhanath Swami. He's the author of The Journey Home and The Journey Within, a New York Times bestseller book on his personal memoir on finding his, or as a seeker, finding his path to spirituality in Vedic India. And the topic that he's speaking on is the currency of relationships.
I'm very grateful to be with all of you today. Thank you, Gopi, for opening the doors to this world-renowned, most influential institution of Google, for me to share some thoughts with you. And my sincere gratitude to each and every one of you who has come today. I was asked to speak on the subject of the currency of relationships. Generally, we think of currency as a medium for exchange, as a means of expressing what has value. And so often in the world today, we underestimate the currency of relationships because we become distracted from what we really want to achieve in our life. Emerson wrote that the reason why this world is in so much chaos and conflict, with so much dissatisfaction, is because people are disconnected from their own selves. What is happiness? What are we really looking for? The tendency, not only today, but always through our human history, is that we become so distracted toward things that are relatively superficial, and we lose our scope of what's really important in life. There's an analogy I learned in South India. There's a there's a bird called a crane. White feathers, long beak, stands on one leg in a stream of water, looking down for food. And so many little fish are passing. Dozens and dozens of little fish, hundreds of little fish, thousands of little fish. The crane observes, lets them pass. When a big fish comes, he eats it and feasts. Now, I don't eat fish, but the analogy is appropriate. He's keeping his attention focused on what is actually significant and lets all the little things go. Unless we are focused on the higher principles, the more valuable things that are really in our lives, then we're easily distracted by every single little fish, and we never find the big one. It's so easy to see a little pebble as a mountain, unless we're focused on a real mountain. Because Anandamayo Bhyashat, everyone is seeking pleasure, everyone is seeking meaning. Unless we're focused on deep issues, then we will be obsessed with little things. And this is especially true with relationships. I often cite an example of my own mother and father. When I was about 8 years old, my mother told me as I was sitting on her bed that everyone loves your father and everyone loves me, but we do not love each other. We have decided we're going to separate. Now, as a little child, I couldn't even fathom that idea. My parents don't love each other and they're separating. I was so disoriented, so brokenhearted by hearing that I couldn't say a word. I just sat and cried. My mother was shocked to see my reaction. She didn't know what to say. And I got up and I ran out the door, down the hall, down the stairs, through the living room, out the door, and ran for blocks and blocks. And hid in some bushes. This was almost 60 years ago. I waited a few hours, and then I saw my father's car coming down the road, and I knew he was coming home, and I knew my mother was going to tell him what happened and my reaction. So after he went in the door, I secretly snuck in the back door. And when he went into his bedroom to meet my mother, and they closed the door, I secretly put my ear to the door because I wanted to hear what they were going to discuss. My mother told my father what she said and what happened. There was complete silence. And then I heard them both say, for the sake of our children, we are going to make this work. It wasn't easy for them. They struggled. but they had a higher principle than their own disagreements. They had a big fish to focus on. And over the years, it was hard work for them, I know. But I saw perhaps the most united, loving relationship between two people that I had seen. They earned it by focusing on the higher principle. They let all the little things pass. And my own guru, Srila Prabhupada, I remember he was giving a talk at a marriage. And he gave an analogy about Mahatma Gandhi. He said, he's quoting from Mahatma Gandhi's autobiography, I believe. One time Gandhi and his wife had a serious argument. And Gandhi got angry and said, "Get out from here." So his wife left. And she sat out on the street in front of the house for some hours. And then Gandhi came out and he saw his wife still there. He says, "What are you still doing here?" And she said, "I have nowhere to go." And he said, "All right, let's just forget it." And she said, "Yes, let's just forget it." And Srila Prabhupada explained, when we have disagreements, if we have a higher purpose that we're recognizing of why we're together, then we can easily, or maybe not easily, but we understand the necessity of forgetting all these little things. Somehow or other adjusting. I left college after one semester, so I don't know too much about technology or medicine. But as far as I know, when you're developing electronics, there's conductors and superconductors and semiconductors, so that the current can flow in an effective way to fulfill the purpose of that device, without overheating, without conflict between the different components. That type of circuitry is required in our relationships with each other.
Hello, everyone. We're going to take a pause in the video because we have... Sorry, now I'm confused because previously, Bhakti Sarvagya Gauranga Swami used to be known as Savya, but he recently took the next step in his spiritual path of renunciation. So therefore, in the Bhakti tradition, name also changes. So it's also taking me a while to get used to that. But thank you so much for joining. And I know with the time zones, it can be confusing. And I know whatever you're doing, you've likely had to just drop it and join the Zoom call. But we very much appreciate it. We were, just to summarize, we started with a conversation on what is truth, and the truth is we could not come to a conclusion. And that was something which tied in with today's topic, which was the truth will set you free. And that being said, we have about 30 minutes, so perhaps we can do a abbreviated version of today's talk, if that is okay. And thank you so much for joining from wherever you are in the world and taking time out of your busy schedule to share a little bit of wisdom with our small group.
Hare Krishna. And good evening to all of you. Morning from my end. I thought that it's actually at 4 o'clock. My calculations are off. It's actually started at 3 on this end.
Wow, 3 a.m.
The truth. 3 a.m. this side, yeah. So set you free. Anyway, my thinking around this topic was in the world today, there's a lot of clamor for the truth. all types of people online, they want to tell the truth. They want the truth. In America currently, they want the truth about the Epstein files. And in South Africa, they want the truth about this or that or the other. And so the Bhakti perspective on truth takes us to many gradations of truth, beginning from relative truth all the way to the concept of absolute truth, which in our space in the material world is always debatable. What do you mean, absolute truth? How can you be so proud to claim absolute truth? Well, we understand that according to one's consciousness, one is also able to perceive different levels of reality. And it is understood that the closer one is to the consciousness of God, the greater one is able to perceive reality. Therefore, it is posited that our default consciousness, which is Krishna consciousness, God consciousness, allows us to tune in to the vision of the Supreme Lord, meaning we can see things as Krishna sees them. Just like if you have a body of a fish, then you're able to live in water. But if you have a body of man, then you will not be able to stay for long underwater because you're not suited for that. So similarly, when our consciousness has been purified, cleansed, then we have awakened our natural ability to tune in to reality. At the core, we are spiritual beings, and that nature consists of being able to access reality, hence understanding the truth of who we are, what the world is, and what the Supreme Lord is. I thought of Prahlad Maharaj. There's a young prince, warrior prince, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is one of these wonderful literatures I'm sure some of you have seen or heard of, hopefully. He is confronted by his father. His father is a big politician, a big tyrant in the universe, also known as a demon, meaning he is conversant with the laws of the universe, but he doesn't want to comply. He wants to go against the laws of God. And so that's what qualifies us to be demoniac, is when we are rebellious against the laws of the Supreme Lord. So he sent his young boy to get an education. And especially, he was interested in the young boy becoming just like him, like father, like son. He wanted his boy to become a big diplomat, politician, materialist, and be an enjoyer of material resources and not conform to the laws of God, as in become a surrendered cooperative soul who is guided by divine wisdom, but a man who carves his own path. So enrolled him at the best kindergartens, and he had the best teachers for him. But then when one day wanted to find out what the boy had learned, he sat him on his lap, was smelling his head, caressing his body, like any parent, feeling very paternal. And he asked, my dear boy Prahlad, you tell me what's the best things you've learned. And the boy began to speak that the best of what he has learned is that one should engage themselves in always hearing about the Supreme Person, chanting about the glories of that Supreme Person, remembering God, becoming a servant of God, praying to God, worshiping, becoming friendly, and ultimately offering one's very self to the Supreme. So the father, Hiranyakashipu, did not like this at all. His eyes became copper red. He literally, practically threw the boy off his lap and then began to accost the teachers. You nonsense teachers, you're supposed to have taught my son diplomacy and political maneuvering, hardcore materialism. Why is it that he's speaking the philosophy of my enemy? Because he was dedicated to going against the Supreme. Of course, the teacher said this is not their doing. They had not taught this boy. Somehow or the other, spontaneously, he has come with this mood of being devoted to Krishna. But then the boy began to address his father. And this is found in the 7th canto, the 5th chapter, and text 30 and 31. I thought that these are some truths which may help us to understand and evaluate even our own lives. How much are we also carrying this deviant conclusion or understanding in our lives? So Prahlad addresses his father to clarify why there's become this discord between them, and to highlight the difference between one who is devoted and one who is being misled by material consciousness. So he says in text 30 that because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too addicted to materialistic life make progress toward hellish conditions and repeatedly chew that which has already been chewed. Their inclinations towards Krishna are never aroused, either by the instructions of others, by their own efforts, or by a combination of both. So we'll get into the breakdown of this verse. So the first principle there, or the first truth, is to do with sense control. That when there is no sense control, then the foundation of spiritual growth is missing. If we are going to build any strong building, then a great amount of time is spent in the foundation. They dig and they dig deeper and deeper if you want the building to be strong. And so part of the foundation of a spiritual life is that we have to learn how to control our senses. Otherwise, they drag us towards like base material desires, and they drag us into misconduct. How many times do we see on television important people holding office? I remember a time, I think it was Bill Clinton. He was being dragged for having some illicit affair with, was it a secretary or PA, something like that. There used to be, he just recently died, a big Christian pastor. Even in our own tradition, you find big leaders having issues because somehow or the other, they could not control their senses. And so when the senses are uncontrolled, they're like a horse that's untrained. And you somehow or the other get on its back, but because it's untrained, you cannot control it, and it just starts galloping and running in this way, that way, until you are hanging off it and it's dragging you off the ground. So this is just to sort of paint a more vivid picture of how we can become victimized by our uncontrolled senses. So how do we control the senses? We have to engage them. We cannot be without sense activity. So the transforming technique there is that see, smell, touch, hear, taste in relation to the Supreme Person. That means we have to serve the master of these senses. Krishna has a name called Rishikesh. Rishik means senses in Sanskrit. So Isha means the controller or the master. So we have these senses and they've been given to us by our Creator. And when we use them in the service of the Creator, then they are perfected. They are controlled because they are engaged in connection with the Supreme Spiritual Person. And therefore, they are also purified of lower tastes, lower inclinations. And then the little boy Prahlad mentions that when the senses are uncontrolled, what happens is that one is implicated in what's known as Puna Chavita Chavananam, which means repeatedly chewing that which has already been chewed. So again, we're getting a vivid picture of the sense objects or the things that we try to enjoy here are likened to something that's being chewed. I'm sure some of you have like favorite movies that you've watched a couple of times. I know even today, I wouldn't protest to watch the first Matrix film. It was part of what opened up my mind to how this material world seems to be functioning. But of course, if you had to have me watch it every week, I'd probably become sick. So to chew that which has already been chewed, the Bhagavatam gives examples, and I would maybe, I don't know in your case, but I'm sure most of you have dealt with like chewing gum. Whatever flavor it may be that you like, if you chew it, 10 minutes, maybe something's there. You have to chew it for an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, then it's just a chore which doesn't give any reward, because in the chewing gum, there's a particular flavor that you're trying to extract. And after a certain amount of time, then there's no more flavor in the gum. As kids, we used to chew and we used to stick it under the desk, primary school, such silly habits. And yeah, this is crazy. As if tomorrow, mysteriously, it would have more flavor. So means the senses in this mature world are going for the same objects, but these objects are not capable of delivering greater flavor, taste in them. It's sort of the law of diminishing returns. However, because we have no understanding of any other objects higher than what the world presents around us, we become implicated in this repeatedly chewing that which is already being chewed. And in that way, these recycled experiences, they ultimately bore us and they also blind us Not only do we get bored of it, then we become blind to the concept or even just the possibility that there is something more to this. You know, when someone's convinced that this is just how life is, you know, like this concept of you can't know pleasure without knowing pain. Although it is true in this world, which is, you know, dual, it's a duality. We can sort of appreciate one when we compare it to the other. But that doesn't mean just because we live in a world of duality that pain and suffering are necessary for life. You know, at the end, we're so sold to the idea that we must suffer. That is life. And other people actually start to try and really feel alive by even inflicting pain on themselves and others. So then they really feel alive. One girl, on some TV show, I remember back in the day, sort of a victim of an abusive relationship. And so she's being interviewed and she's unpacking the abuse. It was physical abuse. The partner used to beat her. But she had come to this conclusion that if he was not beating her and, you know, a few days go by, a week, he hasn't beaten her up, then she had to create some mischief just to anger him, because her conclusion was that if he doesn't beat me, then he doesn't love me. So that is how we become bound to again beating our heads against the rock of material sense enjoyment, thinking that if we don't suffer materially, then we are not alive per se. And then Prahlad Maharaj warns that the further implication of chewing that which is already being chewed because of having uncontrolled desires is that our hearts become hard. Our hearts become hardened. And so in that heart, bhakti, devotion, divine love for God does not awaken. Or, as he puts it, our inclinations toward Krishna are never aroused. The goal of Bhakti Yoga is that we who are known in the Sanskrit language, those who practice bhakti are known as bhaktas. It means we are supposed to be the abodes of bhakti, which means devotional love. We are carriers of love in our heart. We are loving divine beings. And that love is meant to be reposed on the Supreme, who is known as Bhagavan. Bhagavan means the possessor of all opulences, including the capacity to love all beings and to reciprocate the feelings of love of all beings. So the bhakta, we, the abodes of love, the object of love, Bhagavan, and the process of transacting with Bhagavan is known as bhakti. So bhakta, Bhagavan, and bhakti, the relationship. So when our inclinations to love Krishna cannot be aroused because our hearts are saturated with material desires and impressions, because we've been chewing again and again on the chewing gum of material enjoyment, then we are robbed of such a treasure. So a reflection there is that the inner environment or the inner mood is much more important than the external rituals that we go through in life, because even just keeping body and soul together, these are the rituals of life in this world that everyone has to go through to survive. But then, what is the value of survival? Is it just we want to stay alive? And how long can we stay alive? So we should learn what is what can be achieved by being alive. These our careers, our money, they help us not to die from hunger and the elements, so we can get home, we can get food and clothing. So they provide survival value. However, there must be value to survival. So the truths that are given in spiritual life, that to be alive, and especially to be alive in the human form of life, is that then we get a chance to invest in eternal existence beyond death, no more birth, but we regain our spiritual lives, our spiritual body, and we dip our feet in the ambrosia of love in Krishna. And we get into the realm of ever-increasing joy. So genuine attraction to God doesn't arise in the heart which is steeped in materialism. It leaves us sort of just following some ritual. I give an example of the elephant, right? He's famous for going to the riverbank and drawing water, and it looks very beautiful. With his trunk, he has like a shower. He bathes himself, and it's quite a scene. Everyone, oh, wow. And then once he's done doing that, he gets on the bank and starts to roll again in the dust. So no matter how many times he takes this beautiful shower, because when he's done, he rolls again in this dust, he's never clean. So similarly, when we are not converting our activities and converting our hearts, or that reorganizing our hearts to make the Supreme Lord the main character of, or the main object of our activities, and we leave our hearts open to just the ambitions of this world, devoid of the concept of serving the Supreme, then we never make advancement. We don't cross over. Just time rolls along, and we are like a hamster that's just running on that wheel. Although they're running, it's really in the same place, right? So we want our spiritual lives to, like a seed has been planted, and we are watering it with this hearing and discussing, and we want that seed to sprout and to grow, and that vine to grow further and further until it's producing beautiful flowers and then fruits that are tasty. So Prahlad Maharaj is telling his father that basically, because you have uncontrolled senses, my dear daddy. You are implicated in chewing that which has already been chewed. And even if I may instruct you about Krishna consciousness, or others may come and instruct you about this science, or even if you by yourself try to understand this science, it will not really bear fruit as long as you are holding tight to these materialistic conceptions. So our efforts have to be guided by sincerity and other practitioners who are more evolved or more serious. And personal effort is needed, but personal effort guided by experienced personalities, then it helps us to fine-tune our sincerity. And Krishna is only looking for that sincerity, and he's ready to help any and everyone, which is one of the secrets of spiritual growth, is to maintain a sincere desire for this growth and to approach our practice with a humble heart. I'm implicated in chewing that which has already been chewed. Therefore, my heart has become somewhat polluted by insatiable material desires and longings and hopes. My dear Lord, you please kindly help me by giving me the association of those who have saintly tastes and desires. And in that way, help me to give up on this chewing gum that is run out of flavor. Yeah, I think maybe I paused there. We only just did that first verse. If you have time, you can look at text 31. Maybe I'll just read it without unpacking it, because from a 5-year-old boy, this is prime teachings. It's quite straightforward down the line. It's just, then he says, persons who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life and who have therefore accepted as their leader or guru a similar blind man attached to external sense objects cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead and engage in the service of Lord Krishna. As blind men guided by another blind man miss the right path and fall into a ditch, materially attached men led by another materially attached man are bound by the ropes of fruitive labor, which means karma, which are made of very strong cords, and they continue again and again in materialistic life, suffering the threefold miseries. So I think one ball of truth that maybe we could meditate on would be we are implicated in the law of action and reaction. And when we change our actions, we act in devotion with the process of yoga, connecting bhakti yoga, then we are changing our destiny. If we want to change our future, we can change our activities today by learning how to connect in bhakti yoga. And everything becomes adjusted organically. So thank you for your attention, and please don't curse me having taken you away from such a beautiful talk by Radhanath Swami Maharaj, who is a walking saint. hopefully next time I'll get it right with the timings. Anyone would like to say anything, share any thoughts or comments or questions? Good to see you, Graham.
I'd have to say thank you. And no apology is necessary because things happen. Your flight was delayed or whatever reason. But it's interesting how you mentioned Bill Clinton. I remember that issue came out. Yes, he had the affair with Monica Lewinsky. And, I saw that happening. And, not my concern. I mean, it's between him and Monica Lewinsky and with Hillary. But I also remember the issue with, that was Jimmy Swaggart. And, again, the fact that, somebody has an affair, again, that's between him and his wife. And as you said, with the divine, to me, it was humorous because here he was always talking about moral values and don't do that sort of thing. And then he himself was caught doing it. So that's where we're stretching the truth. It was interesting reflecting on that.
Yeah, because that's the warning that this material energy is very powerful. Very powerful, and we're always sort of susceptible to becoming victimized by our lower desires per se. Say you're married, but then you're still being dragged outside doing something like that, or you're speaking and teaching against doing such things, and yourself can become dragged down. And I think like that we learn from the big people, you could say famous figures, that I should be careful and I should work on my own heart. Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you for that. Yeah. Okay, I think, yes.
I was going to say, any other questions or comments? All right. If not, thank you so much for joining. Bhakti Sarvagya Gauranga Swami. It'll take me a while to get used to this longer name, but we're very grateful that you took time out of your morning, which now is probably 3:30 a.m. or something like that, to join us. I know I can barely get up that early in the morning, let alone put together cohesive thoughts. So it means a lot to us, and we're very grateful. That being said, thank you everybody for joining Wisdom Wednesdays and taking time out of your day to invest in spiritual ideas. There's something that one of my spiritual teachers says, where he says, where attention goes, energy flows. And by putting attention in topics like this, we're able to put energy in the right places such that we're able to come to the right realizations, which allow us to perhaps unveil the truth that is not relative to other people, but relative to the ultimate truth. That being said, thank you so much, everybody. And we will see you again online or in person sometime in the near future. Thank you.
Yes, good
Thank you very
night.
much.